we think of it as fate, but stories like this are possible and loves like this are possible for anyone. I forget to say cut because I'm like watching the movie right there live. I'm like, this is amazing.
Hey guys, it's Kristen, and today we're on the red carpet of Angelfish, starring Princess Nokia and Jimi Stanton. It's a love story set in the 90s in New York City. Let's go check it out. Congratulations, this is your feature film debut, correct?
My first feature, yeah, my feature film debut, and I'm so excited to have you all here and for us to be premiering here. It's a great night.
So now you wrote, directed, and produced Angelfish. Where did the inspiration for this story come from?
The story was inspired originally. I knew I was going to make this as my first feature for the last 4 or 5 years. It's inspired by how my parents met in Dublin in the 50s and 60s. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
I know, and I've grown up with this story my entire life, and it's like I've always thought, that's great. It's such a fairy tale love story. The summer that it takes place, and how they meet, and where they meet, and the problems they face, and how they resolve all their problems. It's a beautiful story from Ireland in the 50s and 60s. And what I wanted to do is take that love and that story that I was inspired by, and replace it in this city that I moved to that I love.
Can you tell us a little bit about Angelfish and what drew you to this project?
Yeah, absolutely. Angelfish is, at its core, it's a love story. It's between two young kids from the Bronx. They fall in love over a summer. They come from different worlds, and not necessarily neighborhoods, but just family backgrounds and the way that they were brought up, and just the things that their family wants them to strive for and their principles, and they fall in love over the summer and realize that there's other things out there that they maybe want, and they realize, through supporting each other and listening to each other, that it could be possible. And it's a really sweet love story that goes from the honeymoon phase of a relationship to the time where you need to put in work, and when that time comes, it's really interesting to see what these two kids basically do and the decisions that they make.
Are there any certain moments in this movie that just obviously the whole thing speaks to you, but that you really feel extra connected to because it's inspired by your parents' relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really great question. The movie starts and ends. I don't know if that's spoilers, but the movie starts and ends in the same place, because that's where the whole dramatic arc of the film plays, and that location and how they meet is vitally important for me. So there's that moment, and where we start and end the movie, and where the characters meet and where they eventually end up, is one of the most meaningful for me, because for the last scene, the last minute of the movie, if the last minute of the movie didn't happen, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
That is fate right there.
Yeah, it's very, and that's the thing that I've been saying is that one of the reasons why I love this story so much, and I wanted to tell this story, was we think of it as fate, but stories like this are possible, and loves like this are possible for anyone. That's the message of the film, I think.
That's beautiful. So now I have to ask, how did this cast come together?
So we started a couple of years ago thinking about the casting, and I knew that I wanted to find two actors that aren't known to viewing audiences for their acting ability, and the most talented, almost improvisational actors, because what we did with the script was there was a lot of improvisation on set. This is another thing, it's not necessarily related to me, but there's a scene in the movie that is almost completely improvised. It wasn't originally in the script between Jimi and Princess Nokia, and it's one of the most beautiful things because it's inspired by their own experiences, and that's that authenticity, yeah.
So what was it like working with Princess Nokia? Did you guys have to kind of get into the chemistry, or was it instant?
It was really nice. The first day we met in a rehearsal, so we were really lucky to have about a week to kind of play and talk about everything, and her being from this area was so incredibly helpful. She was just an encyclopedia. I was asking her so many questions about the world and about the style in the 90s and things like that, and she's just one of those artists that you could sit back and just listen to and just be yourself, and she brings the whole story up and the whole scene up with her, and Yeah, it was absolutely incredible to see her in that way. And then once we were wrapped, I started to go back and listen to the music, and you kind of realize that she's an artist through and through, and she's capable of pretty much doing anything if she set her mind to it.
I was talking with a friend, and she showed me this video of Princess Nokia, and it was an interview. And when I direct, the way that I'm always looking in people's eyes, looking at people, the most minute of interactions. And I saw this video, and I thought, that person in Princess Nokia has exactly the characteristic, the sensitivity, the ability to emote that I need in my Ava, you know. And we reached out to her and we started talking, and then she loved them. And from my understanding, she loved the movie and she loved the script, and she also loved, from my understanding, and the cast loved the idea that they could build on the script, that they could add to it, and that was always the plan. The reason why the camera moves around so much is because I told the operator, these actors in this scene, I want to capture what they do. There's no set things. If they run across the street, we're following them. If they feel like that's what their character would do, and that's to create the authenticity. Yeah.
That sounds like a really great creative space to work in.
We tried to do our best to make that kind of creative space. It's a little bit hectic when you're shooting on New York in the streets,
yeah,
and you have people like saying hello or whatever. But yeah, no, it was an incredibly enjoyable creative space. I had so much fun directing these actors. That's one of my favorite things when I'm directing, because sometimes I'm just like, I forget to say cut because I'm like watching the movie right there live. I'm like, this is amazing. And then my AD taps you and you have to say cut, Peter.
Now, one of the things that the director mentioned that I think is so cool is that, you know, the story is obviously inspired by his own family's love story, you know, his parents' love story, and that he really let you guys kind of bring your own elements into the story. And there was, you know, he mentioned a really cool scene where you guys were improvising. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like, bringing your own background to this?
Yeah, it was really great, and Peter, even from the audition, he was so open and collaborative, and it was really exciting. And the further we got on, and the more that we talked about it, and the more the characters are being realized. I said it before, but this character, more than any character that I played, I related to in such a strong way. Just the decisions that he made, and just his principles and his vulnerability and things like that. So honestly, the best thing that I could do is just sit back and be as honest and truthful as I could. And when it came to improv, it's just so fun, working with Princess Nokia. You know, she throws you the ball, you grab it, and you throw it right back, and it was so easy, and it was so organic the whole time. A lot of times, watching some of the clips, I forgot that it was improv because it just seemed so natural in the moment, and that's the thing, the world that the crew built for us, and the costumes onto the set, and Jamal, our DP, just the way he was shooting, he was so nuanced, and it almost felt like the camera wasn't there. It just felt really natural, and I guess when the improv started to happen, it was just to be there and be present, and it seemed easy. I don't want to say that because it never is, but yeah, it just seems so natural.
Obviously, your parents are Irish. You said they met in Ireland. What was the inspiration behind making your lead character Ava Hispanic and following that storyline?
So we say at the start of the movie, and what I always say is that the movie's inspired by this love story, and I think that this is a universal love story. And so what I wanted to do, my whole experience of love and relationships is kind of inspired by that kind of foundational story in my life. So when I was deciding to write the film, I was living in New York and experiencing the cultures, and I was kind of falling in love with the city. And what I wanted to do was take that classic idea of falling in love and put it in this city that I love, right? This city that I've come to love more and more. And we thought about where we would place it, and we thought about Brooklyn, but then we thought about, and then all my experience in the Bronx has been that the people are just so fantastic and passionate, and the community there. And so as soon as I realized that we wanted to place it in the Bronx, we started to think about, okay, there's a clear opportunity here to talk about these two people from two different worlds, because culture and the meeting of cultures and how diversity and how diverse the city is such an important part. So I wanted to merge that story that I had grown up with and almost the story of life in New York together, and that's where we came up with these two people.
I mean, you got the perfect person, Princess Nokia, who's from New York, Puerto Rican.
That's the other thing. She is New York. When I met her, I said to her, like, I said my job is not to to clearly articulate what it's like as to grow up as a Puerto Rican girl in the Bronx in the 90s, because I'm not qualified for that. So what I'm going to do is bring on you and help and work with you to create the character, for you to be inspired and for you to build this thing from the ground up with us. That's why we went with Jimi and we went with Princess Nokia, because they're so talented in character creation and what they were able to do with these characters that it made the film so authentic.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this one, you can check out more of my celebrity interviews right over here. See ya!